This is Travis Wayne Goodsell. It's 3 in the morning on July 2nd, 2018. I wanted to have a one-on-one discussion with members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormons. I grew up Mormon, born and raised in California, not Utah. I'm off script. This is just you and I talking. The Deseret News yesterday posted an article about the rallies that took place across our nation on Saturday. The rallies were a protest against the separation of family. Those of you who are Mormon, specifically with the Brighamite group, and if you don't understand what I mean by the Brighamite group, then you don't know church history. Because from Joseph Smith's founding church, there have been over 80 splinter groups. Brigham Young was just one of them. So just like after Jesus and the apostles were murdered, the early church split off into over 100 groups. Joseph was only 80 groups. But separation of families, you should know very well the family proclamation of President Gordon B. Hinckley. Mormons support families. Yet the comments posted with the Deseret News article, it tore my heart apart. Because the comments that got the most likes were the comments that trash talked the immigrants. They called them illegal, which means you guys have been listening to Fox News and you've been trusting our president with the words that he said. As someone who trusts the president, then I'm sure you've read his books. Right? The Art of the Deal. He's got others. Have you not read them? Do you not know his plans and intentions as president? You've read the Book of Mormon, haven't you? You know, the Book of Mormon, the official doctrine of the LDS Church, that specifically warns us here in the United States in these last days of destruction by a secret combination. Are you not putting the pieces together? Do you not understand the seriousness of our situation? Joseph Smith prophesied that in the last days the Constitution would hang by a thread, that the elders of Israel would rise up and save it. Where are you guys? What happened? You are supporting a president who has trashed the Constitution. It's destroyed. We're no longer living under constitutional rule. Everybody has been extorted and threatened by our president. That's what he does. That's what he's done in business in New York. That's where I served my mission, was the New York mission under Cree L. Coford, who became a member of the first quorum of 70. What happened? Why didn't you guys see it? Why aren't you guys rising up? Oh, you're waiting for the prophet to tell you. He didn't warn us. not Monson, not Nelson. They didn't warn us. They didn't prepare us. And they're definitely not leading us. The Deseret News posted the church's official statement that separation of families was wrong. It was hidden in an article. They didn't come out over the news to announce it. And it definitely wasn't President Nelson. It was the spokesman. He didn't have the courage to do it himself. Now I understand that having said that, you guys are now scared. How dare I speak up against the prophets? Because President Benson gave the list of 14 conditions of the president of the church. They would never lead us astray. We must always put our trust in them. What happened to Jesus? Where's our trust in Him? Where's our trust in the gospel? When you have an organization that emphasizes nationalistic principles, where it's all about them, it's all about following the leaders, where it's all about the organization, those principles are wrong. But just look at the interview questions for the temple. Look at them. The first one is, do you have faith in and a testimony of Jesus Christ and His gospel? But then all the rest. Do you understand what the Book of Mormon has said about the law of Moses? Not the 10 Commandments, the other laws. There are 613 laws in the law of Moses, according to the Jews. The Book of Mormon says quite clearly, the law of Moses does not save anybody. It does not exalt. They were looking for Jesus to come and fulfill the law of Moses. He came. So why then are we having all these Mosaic laws, these Pharisaical laws? Joseph Smith gave the word of wisdom, not as a commandment, but as good advice, because his wife got sick and tired of cleaning up after the group. It was Brigham Young. Brigham Young created Pharisaical laws in the Mormon Church. From a dress code to making the word of wisdom a commandment. And because we're not supposed to drink coffee or tea, it's been carried over into all caffeinated drinks. And the church has come out last year saying officially, finally, caffeine is not in the word of wisdom. It's a simple thing, and yet every Mormon missed it. At least the Mormons here in Utah. Mormons outside of Utah, we love our Mountain Dew. But to have it smuggled in at BYU and sold in the black market, it shouldn't happen. Come on. Now we have the for strength of youth. Those are our standards. They will not exalt you, no matter how strictly obedient you are to them. They are Pharisaical laws. They do not save. They do not exalt. And so to find out that the majority of members of the church want the separation of families down at the border, that Mormons of the church don't care about the lives of others, calling them illegal, blaming them for crossing our border illegally. Are you serious? Are you not listening to yourself? Have you forgotten the Constitution and the rights therein? When you're arrested, you're supposed to be given the Miranda rights. The Miranda rights came from I'm not sure if it was a Supreme Court decision, but it came from a court decision where cops had to acknowledge a person's rights. There are certain rights we have. There's a process that has to be performed by our police force, by our court system. We have cops roaming the streets looking for criminals. They're supposed to be protecting us, as they tell us. It's a direct violation of the Constitution. They need a warrant. But in state law, they've provided that justification and legalization, violating the Constitution. When you get a traffic ticket, have you tried to fight it? You become the prosecutor. Even though the cop was the one who's giving you the ticket, when you fight it, you become the prosecutor. You're no longer the defendant. You are now denied the right to counsel. The cop gets the counsel. So right away you see the corruption of our Constitution and state law. But let's go a little further. Have you or anyone you loved been arrested for something? And you knew that you or that other person was not guilty? There's a lot of people that are guilty. But what about the innocent? Surely our justice system would not allow an innocent person to go to jail. Do you know the process? Because we go to jail right away. We're locked up. We're punished. We don't go to trial first. They don't make a determination of guilt before locking us up. We go straight to jail. We have to have a bail hearing in order to constitute whether we can pay the bail and get out to then go to trial in some future time. We rot in jail. And the cops know this. That's their job. That's how they get paid. Just like in the Book of Mormon, lawyers got paid by the amount of business they had. So they purposely stirred up the audience to cause contention so that they can take people to court. That's what's being done in our society. And lawyers don't do it. It's the police that does it. The police have quotas that they gotta meet. There's been a lot of backlash on that, and so they've sort of silenced them. But it's still there. If a police officer was not writing tickets or not keeping up with the average from the other police officers, they'll get punished one way or another. They won't call it quota. They'll call it something else. But you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. So what about the immigrants? Aren't they innocent until proven guilty in a court of law? If you listen to Fox News and our president, they're not innocent until proven guilty. They're automatically guilty and we need to punish them. That's their policy. And then you go on and you say, oh, well, Trump and Fox News says it's Obama and Congress back then that started all this. No! You're still being lied to. That's what they're doing. They're purposely lying to you. Haven't you forgotten 9/11? It was Bush who established Homeland Security. It was Bush who established ICE and TSA and the concentration camps, where people who were just suspects were locked away in those concentration camps. And they were locked away indefinitely. And then Obama said, oh, we're now going to have indefinite detentions, even though they'd already been indefinitely detained. Our presidency has been setting us up for this year. They've been setting us up for Trump. Congress is not doing anything to remove Trump. There is no threat to Trump's presidency. It's all a show. Or in New York, it's what's called the shell game. Elder McFarland and I were walking the streets of Manhattan one day, and we came across a group of people gathered around a guy standing before an upright box, and there were 3 shells, and he was moving them around. I saw firsthand how the whole operation worked. Everybody in that group was a part of it. Everybody. They had those who were saying, don't do it, stay away. They had those that were saying, they were just watching and being looky-loos. And then there was the guy who was trying to recruit people in. Come on, you can do it. It's easy. Try to figure out where the ball is. Win money. Quick, easy money. Just $10 to play. They were all in on it. Both sides pitted against each other to appeal to your particular human nature. Whether you were the skeptic or the believer, they were playing you. That's what Trump is doing. That's what our government is doing. Have you ever thought, why do we just have 2 political parties? Those are the divisions that the government specifically placed upon us to get the American people to fight against each other. So when Jeff Sessions got up and announced, we will now separate children from families, he said it. It wasn't Obama in the Congress during that time. It was Sessions. He got up in California and made the announcement. It was on the news. And then when we finally realized, hey, this is actually being implemented, there were a group of people who were upset about that, who didn't like the separation of families. It should have been Mormons. But I only heard of one Mormon from Utah spoken of, from the senator who was down there fighting for the rights of the immigrants. Only one Mormon fighting for the uniting of families. And then President Trump, signs the executive order claiming we're no longer going to be separating families. And all of you were fooled again. Because what does that mean? It means that now children, babies, are with their parents, but they're now indefinitely detained. That's worse. So what are we supposed to do at this point? Because the majority of you believe Fox News. The majority of you believe our president, who specifically said in The Art of the Deal, I use hyperbole. Hyperbole is lies. He's a showman who uses hyperbole to lie to people, to deceive us. That's been his plan the whole time. I've done the research. I've identified the secret combination in our latter days. I've been posting it. I've been writing books about it. My degree from the University of Lethbridge in Canada, where I went to the university there, was in biblical studies and philosophy of science, with a minor in classical languages, though they called it ancient languages. It was biblical Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. Those are classical languages. So I knew that the ancients had connections with the stars. That when there were certain conjunctions in the heavens, that represented an event to take place on Earth. That's where the star of Jesus' birth comes in. A new star, a new birth of a God King. So I knew that solar eclipses referred to a collapse of government. That was understood. That's what was taught to me. And I myself understood that the ancients understood the sun to represent government and the king, and that the moon represented religion and the church leader, the Melchizedek. That's what Melchizedek is a king and priest. Not a priest of the Aaronic order, but a priest of the Melchizedek order, high priest. Nelson took that away. It's only for leaders now. High priests are the way Section 76 says is our only way into the celestial kingdom with our wives. And Nelson took it away from the general elders. All the high priests are now demoted to elders, lowered in rank. Can you imagine if the priest group were ordered by President Nelson to no longer be a quorum of priests, that they are now deacons or teachers? Can you imagine him trying to justify it? The Book of Mormon, Alma 13, talks about how a person becomes a high priest, not a Melchizedek priesthood holder, a high priest in the Melchizedek priesthood. Book of Abraham. Abraham starts off right in the very first of his book He wants to be a high priest, not just a Melchizedek priesthood holder. There are ranks that are supposed to be in the Melchizedek priesthood, just like there are ranks in the Aaronic priesthood. That's the ancient order. When I talk about, in my posts, in my vlogs, about what Brigham Young did with his splinter group, do you think Mormons would actually study it to find out for themselves if it is true? Nope. Mormons have commented death threats for me. Death threats from Mormons of the church. That's certainly Christ-like, isn't it? When the Pharisees come by and tell Jesus that he's violating their Pharisaical law, Jesus responds with, "I'm going to kill you. You better watch yourself or I'm going to kill you." No, he didn't do that. So how can you justify wanting to kill me for speaking the truth? Are you not familiar with the doctrine of our church? Christians only believe in faith. If they believe, they're saved. They don't have to work for it. They disregard the passage in James. Faith without works is dead. That's too complicated for them. They want something simple and easy for their salvation. But Mormons of the church are doing the exact same thing. Moroni, chapter 10, verse 3 through 5. It's all been misinterpreted. By the power of the Holy Ghost, you may know the truth of all things. By. Have you forgotten your education in school? Don't you know the definition of by? It also means through. So you can say through the power of the Holy Ghost. It's a process. It is not an instant thing. If the Spirit tells you something as you're praying, that's not the end result. That does not mean you now know the truth. Because what Moroni is talking about is a process. And it's not a process of reading, pondering, praying, and then boom, answer immediately. Have you not read the Book of Mormon? Have you not even read the Bible? In Hebrews 11, it defines faith. It's incorrectly translated, but it defines faith. But then Christians, likewise, miss out on the rest of the context of the chapter. Because Paul gives examples from the book of Genesis to help us understand what faith is. And Noah. We'll use Noah because in Matthew 24, Jesus talks about, as in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the last days. And you know about the 10 virgins. They had to have a testimony. That's the oil. Through the process of the Spirit, obtaining testimonies. And you guys have all missed it. You think that once the Spirit tells you something, you now have a testimony. You now have knowledge. So let's take that logic into the stories of the Bible. to the stories of the Book of Mormon. Noah, he was told by the Spirit, build a boat. It's not raining. Why should I build a boat? Did he doubt it and ignore it like everybody else did? No. Did he just go around telling everybody, build a boat? God told me to. Talking the talk. No. Did he make an effort to try to build a boat and then just say, I'm doing the best I can. I'm trying. No. He built the boat. He was obedient to the Spirit and built the boat. The boat saved him and his family. Nobody else built their boat. They were not saved. They drowned. They did not heed the warning. So what's the comparison with the latter days? We're supposed to have signs that are supposed to warn us. Sun, moon, and stars. Those signs have all happened. I've been publishing books about it. I've been posting about it. I've been letting everybody know about it. What about the prophets? What have they said about those signs? Nothing. That's the way it was in the Book of Mormon. It was Samuel the Lamanite who said, hey, there's going to be signs coming, guys. Did Nephi, who was the leader of the church, say, hey, there's going to be signs, guys? Nope. He didn't say it. He didn't even bother to record the words of Samuel the Lamanite. And so when Jesus did come, what did he ask Nephi for? I want the records. Show me the records. Where's Samuel the Lamanite's records? Oops. We'll get to that right away, my Lord and Master. My God. Oops. It was not the prophet of the church who warned the members. It was just a regular member. In fact, one from the enemy tribe who had been converted. The Book of Mormon also talks about establishing a king and the warning against establishing a king. Guess what we have now? Trump thinks he's a king. Donald. Have you looked up the definition of the word Donald? All of you who are named Donald know exactly what your name means. It means world ruler. Our government has established a monarchy, and not just any monarchy, a complete tyrannical monarchy. When your rights and freedoms are violated, that is a dictatorship. We are no longer free. And if all you've used was just your feeling indicator to determine what truth is, when Fox News tells you lies, when our president gets up and tells lies, and you have good, warm, fuzzy feelings, and therefore say, oh, he's speaking the truth, it's from God. What happened to you? How did we get here? Joseph Smith intended to raise up an army of Israel, an army of the elders of Israel. He knew about the secret combinations. He knew about the threat to our United States. As someone who knows, is he just going to say, "Oh, yeah, I know, it's going to happen, nothing we can do about it"? No, he tried to do something about it and was murdered. On the 27th of June, last week, was the anniversary of his assassination, along with Hyrum Smith, his brother. And the church fell into a succession crisis. People weren't sure who to follow anymore. Brigham Young took it upon himself to try to lead as many who would follow him. He had no authority. He was a traveling 12. They had no leadership authority in the church. They were missionaries. That's as far as they were. And yet, he took upon himself authority he had no authority to take upon himself. And yet Mormons were fooled by him. And we're still fooled to this day. And why? Well, because all of his successors are therefore also illegitimate. The illegitimate prophets have to say they're legitimate. Because nobody's going to follow them if they say the truth. You know, when you realize the truth, it creates a faith crisis. And it's supposed to be a good thing because you're realizing truth. But if you do not build an ark using the metaphor, and you just stick with the feeling, you will give up on that feeling and go back to the old traditions. It's in the Book of Mormon. That's the process. And they tell you, if you've been enlightened, and then you go back, you become more hardened. That's the danger of believing that the Spirit telling you something is knowledge. Alma 32, verse 28. Right smack in the middle of the book. That is our doctrine. That is the process of faith. The word from the Spirit is a seed. It is not fruit. It is a seed. That seed must be believed so that the word gets planted in our hearts. Then we must water it, give it sunlight, dung it, help it to grow. But it grows independent of anything we do. Now, if we put it in different types of soils, such as stony soil, thorny soil, wayside soil, sound familiar? It's a parable of Jesus in the New Testament. If we do not put it in good soil, which means believing, not doubting, not being skeptical, believing. And it's not dogmatism, because even scientists, they all claim, oh, we're being skeptical, we doubt things, and we put things to the test. When you put something to the test, you're having faith. They won't acknowledge that. Likewise, when somebody tells us something, we trust them. But we're not foolish to just follow whatever they say. We have to replicate it. We have to grow it and see if it produces the fruit that it says will happen. Just when an architect, he gets a design in his head, he writes it out in a blueprints. He knows all the laws of physics, so he knows exactly where to place the support beams. He knows how big to make it. But it's not until the contractor, the building contractor, who makes the house according to the blueprints, that's when you know if a house is good. Out in daybreak, we know that the designer of those homes was not thinking right, because they're experiencing a whole lot of problems out there. But that guy got paid a lot of money for his plans, for his blueprints. And people are blaming the contractors. The contractors are going, it's not our fault, it's the blueprints. We were just following the blueprints. By their fruits ye shall know them. And President Nelson, by his fruits, we now know him. They have not told us about the signs in the heavens that have been fulfilled. And you say, oh, well, there's lots of lunar eclipses, there are lots of solar eclipses, there are lots of meteor showers. Did you know that the specific meteor shower happened the night of President Monson's death? Yeah. When you understand astronomy, you know that the heavens and their movements represent a timing. The sun rises in the morning, sets in the evening. We establish time by the movements of the heavenly bodies. So when John the Revelator, in Revelation chapter 12, talks about a specific positioning of the planetary bodies, he gives one for the woman when she gives birth. He gives another for the dragon, and then he gives another for the tail of the dragon. John the Revelator was giving us a specific date in the future. Those have all happened. Revelation 12 has now happened. And again, I've been posting it. I've published books on it. I knew about it because I used to watch the local Fox News. And on the 4th of November, 2016, they announced the solar eclipse over the United States on the 21st of August, 2017. And I knew this was it. Destruction is to happen after the signs. The signs have all happened. It's destruction time. And the President Nelson has not warned us. He has not prepared us. The church fell into apostasy with the murder of Joseph Smith, just like with the murder of Jesus and the apostles. Apostasy. Do you understand it? Do you now recognize it? It was Brigham Young who set Joseph Smith up as the one who started polygamy. Brigham Young started it. When he got to Utah, he made the announcement, "We will now practice polygamy." He had the records changed, the historical records, the journal, the history of the church. He altered it to blame Joseph. Women accused Joseph of coming to them, of having sex with them, of having children with them. We now have DNA. We now know they were all lying. And murder, the most serious of sins, not to mention crimes. As a leader, when you order the murder of others, with the Mountain Meadows Massacre, with the Indians here in Utah, and as I've pointed out, of Joseph and Hiram Smith, of the saints crossing the plains, he let them fend for themselves. And then in the conference, when he was safe and cushy in his lifestyle, said, "Oh, there are saints crossing during this winter time, when I told them to go, who are now dying. Go and save them. We're not going to have this conference. I'm not going to go. You guys go." Tithing. He used tithing to build his mansion. Tithing is supposed to be for the poor. Yet when you go in for your tithing settlement, you are instructed that tithing goes for the church, for buildings, for Book of Mormons, curriculum materials. Remember nationalism? The signs of nationalism? It's a focus on the organization. Ezekiel chapter 16 says that the reason why Sodom was destroyed was because they neglected the poor. There's no emphasis on fast offerings in our church. Sure, they'll say, make a generous fast. But it's tithing that gets you your temple recommend, not fast offerings. Devotion to the church and its leaders gets you the benefits of going to the temple, not whether you're being Christ-like and helping the poor. Those are supposed to be the determining factors of getting a temple recommend. Those are the determining factors of becoming a high priest who can enter into the Holy of Holies and enter into the presence of God and be exalted for time and all eternity. Not loyalty to a church not loyalty to a man. Loyalty to the church will not exalt you. Taking your faith and turning it into physical knowledge of truth, a testimony, that's what exalts you. Taking care of the poor, that exalts you. And how are you treating the poor immigrants at the border? Are you rescuing them? Or are you blaming them? They brought upon themselves their situation. Remember the Zoramites? The builders built the synagogue with the Rameumptom. Once the building was done, they were out of work. They were now poor. And the rich Zoramites kicked them out. You are not supporting our society. You are poor. So you were denied entrance into our synagogue. You are not paying your tithing because of your poverty. Therefore, you cannot have a temple recommend to enter our temple. Do you see the connection? The Book of Mormon tells us what to watch out for. The corruptions, not just of government, not just of individuals, but of organizations of the church. False prophets. That's what Jesus warned. False prophets in the latter days. Well, which organization has prophets? Baptists? No. Catholics? No. Jehovah's Witness? No. Guess what? Guess what Jesus was talking about? He was talking about the apostasy in the last days, the apostasy of the church. We need a restoration of the church. But instead, we're going to have destruction. It's coming. Trump is establishing martial law principles. He controls everything, and no one can stop him. Or, to quote Lucifer, no one dares to molest or make afraid. What are you going to do about it now? Where do you stand? I feel like I'm like Ether and Moroni, who warned and warned and warned, but in the end could only record the history of the destruction of their society. None of you listen to me. I'm not getting millions of views from my vlogs. I'm not getting millions of views on my website. I'm not selling millions of books. Nobody cares. Just like with the Deseret News article yesterday. Everybody likes the persecution of the innocent. By blaming them, rather than saying, hey, wait a minute, maybe this isn't right. So that's all I have for now. I don't know what else to say. I don't know what else to do. Like I said, I feel like Moroni, who realized that he could no longer help and convince his people to be righteous. So where do we go from here? Because President Nelson isn't going to lead us. He wants to build a temple in Russia. You do not build anything in Russia without being found guilty of criminal behavior. That's what Russia does. They get a P-tape on you so that they can hold it against you in some later time when they want to get something from you. That's what Russia does. That's how they get their wealth and suppress their people. They have something on the church leaders, on the church. Because there's no way we would have been allowed in Russia, let alone build a temple there. So, I don't know what else to say. Are you going to stand up for the right? Choose the right. That's been our slogan. That's been our logo. CTR. And yet people have understood that it can also mean corrupt the righteous. Choose ye this day whom ye will serve, whether it be God or a man.